think obsession wins. And this is business advice, but this is just life advice in general. The people who are absolutely obsessed are going to beat the people who aren't every day of the week. And you see it at the lowest levels from, people moving up the ranks, like at the bottom of the totem pole at a small company. Yeah. And you see it in the big leagues with, Elon Musk and these other guys. Is like, he's just obsessed. He's just obsessed with solving these problems that he's decided he wants to solve, and nobody will get in his way. It's like a freight train. Yeah. Right? And I think anybody, whether you're running a business, working for a business, thinking about starting a business, if you're just absolutely obsessed and you can't stop thinking about something, you're probably going to win, because most people aren't that way.
All right, welcome back to the 1% Bttr Podcast. Today we have on Kieran O'Brien. Kieran, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chuck.
Likewise. So, Kieran, I know a little bit about you, but for our listeners here, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey that kind of got you to this point.
Yeah, happy to. My name's Kieran. I'm 25 years old. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Started flipping sneakers on eBay and doing lemonade stands when I was like 15, 16. Started a wedding videography business in high school. That was my another little business that I had, and all sorts of things. I've always just tinkered with things. And so, I guess my quick story is I was born and raised in a small town in Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Pretty standard, like middle-class upbringing here in the U.S. And my mother was actually a German immigrant, escaped communism from behind the Berlin Wall and all of that, and came here to America and kind of instilled that immigrant mindset into myself and my siblings from a young age. And so kind of going out there and making the world a better place and working hard was something that was always instilled in me as a child. So I think that's why I ended up kind of pursuing all these random little side hustles always. I was a terrible student. I was a C&D student all through high school. And I just couldn't be bothered to do schoolwork. I just knew that I wanted to do something different. I just didn't align with the path of like the university system that is kind of pushed on you here in America. And so, one of the transformative moments for me was when I met my first mentor, a guy by the name of Matt Curry. He's a Techmetric and Shopgenie customer, which those names might not mean anything to you if you're listening to this podcast, but I'm sure we can provide some context. I met him because his son went to the same high school as me. And, again, I'm from a small town in Virginia, very like middle class, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. But this guy had a Ferrari, and I saw it driving around town one time. And my dad was like, "Oh, that's Matt." I'm like, "Who's Matt? I need to meet this guy." And so I cold emailed him, and he ended up kind of taking me under his wing, and he ended up telling me, "Hey, I owned a chain of 11 auto repair shops that I sold for tens of millions of dollars, and now I'm retired and XYZ." He eventually came out of retirement and is now running another chain of auto repair shops. But he was my first mentor that kind of got me into business and entrepreneurship, and also the automotive industry, which is where I've been for most of my career. And so I think the importance of finding mentors is massive. And, he was the first, but I've had a couple more incredible mentors since then that have taught me all sorts of different things about life and business and entrepreneurship. And my first like real business was a marketing agency in the automotive industry. And Matt was my first client, and they paid me to run their marketing, their web development, Google AdWords. And I was 17 at the time. I didn't know anything, but I was determined enough to learn. And so I always joke, because I didn't go to college, I always joke that I went to YouTube University, because I just taught myself everything, how to run pay-per-click ads, how to do WordPress development, all that stuff.
Totally.
And scaled that into a nice little lifestyle business between the ages of like 17 and 21. And then when I was 21, I realized that the real leverage is building something where you don't have to sell your time, because running a marketing agency, I was essentially a glorified freelancer. Like I only made money if I put time into something myself personally.
Right.
I had a small team of like contractors and stuff, but I realized I wanted to build something once and sell it unlimited times.
Mm.
And that is ultimately the concept that attracted me to software. And, there was a couple different shiny objects along the way and different dead ends that I went down and had to come back and try again. But I eventually stumbled across the idea of Shopgenie, which is the business that I've been building for the last few years. And is essentially a CRM software for automotive repair shops, keeping with the theme of, my area of my zone of genius, my competency, what I knew.
Yep.
Recently sold that business back in October, very successful exit to a company called Techmetric. And I'm now working there, helping that company build their internal CRM product and kind of replicating what we did at Shopgenie. And so that's the quick 10,000 foot view.
10,000, man, I could go on for hours with you about just that part alone. Absolutely incredible, man. And first and foremost, congrats for your exit and what you've done with that. But also there's so many things that I even want to unpack with that. And first, I guess I would say the definition of success is so subjective to so many people and what it is defined to as them. And you saw Matt's success and wanted to emulate that to your own degree of what you were looking at it as. But did you envision this type of success that you're at right now when you were in high school or flipping shoes online, or did it kind of just evolve over time?
Yes and no. I will say that like I've always known that I'm going to be successful because that's just the mindset that I've had since I was a kid. And I've talked about this a few times, like on other podcasts and with friends, even just like sitting on the couch, like unpacking, the way that I think about the world. And I genuinely can't tell you why or how I've thought this way, but I felt like I always just looked at the world a little bit differently.
Mm.
I would look at businesses and wonder exactly how they're run and what inspired the founder to start it. And I'd be sitting in a restaurant and examining the logistics of like the handoff between hostesses and servers and like just random stuff. I've always just been extremely analytical about business and how businesses operate and what makes
When did that start?
Successful. As long as I can remember, since I was a kid, I've always just been obsessed with learning how things work. I'm looking at something and looking at a successful business, looking at a successful company or startup or whatever it is. I can't just accept the fact that they're successful. I have to understand why.
Right.
I just have this innate curiosity. I think curiosity is really the word for it. And I've had it since as long as I can remember. And I always knew that was a route that I wanted to go down. I felt called to it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And then I think modeling is also really important. So, I didn't really know how to put things into words. I didn't really know what steps or what actions to take, which is why I think mentorship is so important, because you might have that innate curiosity. You might have that innate drive, determination, ambition, work ethic, whatever you want to call it. But if you don't have a model to model after, it might go to waste. And so that's why I think finding role models and mentors in life is a cheat code, because you can apply your drive and your ambition to a proven process and a framework of advice from somebody who's been there and done what you want to do.
It's an accelerator to anything that you want to accomplish, having somebody that's already done it. And I think where so many people kind of get caught up with is trying to reinvent the wheel when there's so many ways out there. If you just look at somebody who's kind of above you or at a further point in your life that has done what you would like to emulate or put your own sauce on it, so to speak. You mentioned Matt. This actually sparked a question for myself. Did he throw a gasoline on your fire that you already had, as far as like how you were looking at things, picking up patterns, so to speak, almost that recognition of reinforcing what was already going through your head?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, that's how old I was when I met him, I knew that I wanted success. I wanted the Ferrari. I wanted all the things, right? I wanted a successful business. I wanted all of that. I knew that I wanted those things. And I knew where I was in that moment, which was a broke high school student. I didn't know how to bridge the gap between those two realities. Like, I knew that one day those things would be my reality, and I knew that today this is my reality. I wasn't delusional. But bridging the gap between those two things was always just fuzzy and confusing to me. And so somebody like Matt and my other mentors that I've had throughout my life, they start to help you put the puzzle pieces in place.
Right.
They start to help you understand, well, how do you think about business? How do you think about problems that need to be solved in the world? How do you think about customer service? How do you think about building a product? How do you think about investing in real estate? Whatever it might be, there's these frameworks that successful people have created, and they're not like geniuses, right? They learned from somebody else. Like, they had models, they had mentors in their life, and they're now passing that information down to you. And so I think that's another key point is, like, don't put people on pedestals. Like, everyone has their own problems and everyone has their own downfalls and shortcomings. But take what you can and, pick and choose the pieces of advice that you want to take from the models and the mentors in your life and apply them to help build that bridge, that puzzle between where you are and where you want to be.
Regarding mentors and how important they've been to you, was there a fear factor in the beginning, or still to this day, or like you said, putting them on that pedestal? They all have their own problems, but when seeking mentors, for listeners out there that don't have mentors, that might be older, I think it's a very great thing if you can get mentors at a young age. But what if you are older and you're like, you know what, I still would like a mentor, and they can potentially be younger than you? How do you seek them out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think mentorship is a very broad term. I don't think
Sure.
anything, like, in most cases, your mentor is going to be older than you, just purely because life experience breeds knowledge and things that are worthy of being passed down or transferred to somebody else. But it's not necessarily always the case. There could be mentors that are younger than you. And we're also not just talking about, like, career or financial success. I try to seek out mentors in every aspect of life. If I'm trying to learn a new skill, if I'm trying to venture into something new in my life, I'm looking for models and mentors to model my behavior after. In whether I'm trying to, like, learn how to play chess, or trying to learn how to cook, or whatever it is, this concept can be applied to anything. And I think, again, going back to, like, the broken university system in America, it's very common in other countries, specifically in Europe, for apprentice programs. And this is how most auto mechanics in Europe, most tradesmen, most blacksmiths, etc., woodworkers, most of the time they're going through an apprenticeship program, which is where an older mentor takes them under their wing and shows them how to do X skill. And I think that has become, unfortunately, too uncommon in the US.
Very much.
It's definitely harder to find these things. But yeah, finding a mentor, I think people underestimate the level of willingness that people have to help those that are behind them in terms of whatever we're measuring it with, whether it's career trajectory, financial status, whatever it is, success. The people that have accomplished things, they have it's a little bit selfish on their part too. Like, they have an innate kind of yearning to pass that knowledge down, to boost their own ego, to make themselves feel good. Right. And so it's not a one-way transaction. In most cases, them helping you, they're actually helping themselves. They're actually doing something for themselves that they're going to feel good about, and that they're going to be able to sleep well at night knowing that they did a good thing.
It's a service to a degree.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, you just dropped such a bomb right there at the end. Don't be afraid to ask. And there's a great interview back in the day with Kobe Bryant where they were asking him, I think it was right around where he was retiring at that point, and they were asking him, like, how'd you get into storytelling and writing books and doing this type of stuff? He's like, I just cold call people. He's like, and granted, it's Kobe Bryant. He has access to everybody you could think of.
Yeah.
But the point of the story is he was never afraid to just pick up the phone and call somebody and ask questions. And I think there's so much power in that with anything that you want to learn. We're almost caught up in this society now where you have to be like looked at like you know everything, instead of just saying, I actually don't know the answers to this, and having that vulnerability with yourself and being okay with it. And I think there's so much power in that, because then people say, okay, this isn't the smartest person in the room. He wants to learn. They want to take you under your wing with that. And this is something that I'm curious about, just with even with your time and how you spend it, especially in entrepreneurship. Is time is really our most valuable asset, whether you're working for a company or you're self-employed. But how do you quantify or figure out what is worth your time and what isn't worth your time as a CEO, as somebody that is building something, and you can go in a million different directions, especially with ideas, and knowing which one stack ranks to the top versus the bottom, and differentiating kind of like what is most valued for the business needs?
Yeah. I'll be honest, it's something I've always struggled with. I've always been somebody who gets like really excited about things and gets shiny object syndrome and all that. I think the important thing is, for myself, just time management in general. Sure. I'm very feel-based, right? If it feels right, if it feels like the right thing, I'm usually going to do it. And if it feels like the wrong thing, I'm usually not going to do it. It's really that binary for me. And, it's probably not helpful for people listening, but I do think gut and intuition is a big piece of decision-making in business and in life more broadly. In terms of like actual tactical advice, the way that we structure decision-making processes at Shopgenie, especially when we were an independent company, I got to give credit to my co-founder, Caden. He's great at that, and he would hold me accountable. And so I think that is the biggest key that a lot of business owners are missing, is they either don't have an accountability partner, or they have one that doesn't actually hold them accountable as much as they should be, because they're equally as prone to shiny object syndrome or whatever it is. And I think that decision fatigue and shiny object syndrome are two of the most insidious things in business, because you can be slowly bleeding your business out, killing your business, and you won't even realize it until it's too late, when you're being yanked all over the place in different directions and chasing different things.
Totally.
So I think it's really important for somebody in your life, somebody in your business, if you're a business owner, to hold you accountable and put that structure in place, so you don't go off the deep end and make a bunch of irresponsible decisions. So.
Right. When you and Katie had started, did you kind of decide that right off the start, like, hey, you're going to be the Mr. Accountability, I'm going to be the grandiose plans, and these are lack of better terms, but was that kind of found early on, or did it develop as you guys continued your relationship?
Yeah, that's been our relationship since day one. We had a business prior to Shopgenie, but it's the classic visionary integrator combination, right? Every business needs a visionary and every business needs an integrator, and they can't be the same person, and the same person can't have both, right? Because what makes somebody a great visionary is the lack of skills that an integrator has, and vice versa. What makes somebody a great integrator is the lack of the skills that make somebody a great visionary. And so you just can't have both. They have to be different people with different responsibilities and and different veto powers within a business. I think the checks and balances between co-founders and between executive teams, when you have different outlooks on big decisions in the business, is vitally important.
Yeah. I know that there's a deep love with you with marketing, and it has been for a while. Has the marketing side of things played a part in what you decide is worth pursuing, with what your ideas are that are going through your head, and how you determine what path you go on of like, I could really market the shit out of this?
Yeah, 100%. That's how my brain works always. I always think distribution first. If I can't comprehend or understand how something's going to be distributed or marketed, I won't be interested in pursuing it. And I'm not saying that's the right way to think about things. And in some cases, I actually think that could be a downfall. But that's just how my brain works. works. When I see something, when I see a product or a company or a feature or something that we want to do, I'm always thinking before we even start building it, I'm thinking about how do we market this? How do we get distribution? And again, Caden thinks about things in pretty much the exact opposite way. He's thinking about, is this feasible? Can we build it? How long will it take to build? Those things don't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
And so I do think that, that's just kind of innately how my brain has always worked.
Marketing is constantly evolving too. I was in college from 07 to 2011, 2012, and social media wasn't even like talked about at that point as far as being such a big piece of businesses and how they market themselves. So my thing is it's ever evolving. How do you stay ahead of trends and really what's going on? Is it researching? Is it reading? Or do you rely more on your pattern recognition and intuition?
Yeah, I think pattern recognition and intuition are super underrated in business. I think when you truly have a pulse on an industry, I think that you can kind of see around corners.
Yeah.
And this is why I think a lot of more horizontal companies, especially in software, don't see as much success. This is why vertical specific softwares are able to scale so quickly, is because they have just a deep innate knowledge and understanding of their customer avatar. We see it in our industry, right? With auto repair software, there's a lot of players that'll try to provide services to our customers, but then also dentists and car dealerships and chiropractors and whatever else. And, we beat them every day of the week because they just don't have the innate understanding of the customer. And so, when you put the customer first and you obsess over customer problems, you kind of don't really have another choice but to be just ear to the ground all the time, finger on the pulse of the industry, and just understanding things as deeply as possible. And I think obsession wins. And this is business advice, but this is just life advice in general. The people who are absolutely obsessed are going to beat the people who aren't every day of the week. And you see it at the lowest levels from people moving up the ranks, like at the bottom of the totem pole at a small company. Yeah. And you see it in the big leagues with, Elon Musk and these other guys. Is like, he's just obsessed. He's just obsessed with solving these problems that he's decided he wants to solve, and nobody will get in his way. It's like a freight train. Right? And I think anybody, whether you're running a business, working for a business, thinking about starting a business, if you're just absolutely obsessed and you can't stop thinking about something, you're probably going to win, because most people aren't that way.
No, totally. Before he went off the deep end and lost his mind, Conor McGregor has such a great quote too, of just talking about, I am obsessed. Like, this isn't talent. This is pure obsession. Night, day, when I'm sleeping, this is all I think about. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think there's almost this talk of manifestation that is big right now. Manifest it and you'll get what you want. But it's like, let's just say what is synonymous with that. It is obsession, and just wanting to just be immersed in it 110% all of the time. It's something that I look at even myself. Like, if I'm not 100% in on something, probably won't do it. Like, because it's just like, you're going to half-ass it then, and you're going to get half-ass results. Thinking though of the market, and looking at, you were talking about your gut and intuition and following, knowing the trends just based off of being fully immersed. The idea for media kits was really interesting to me when you were talking about it on a podcast I was listening. The idea for it started back in high school, but it wasn't ready until years later.
Yeah.
How much of that happens in your head and you're just like, God damn it, I got to wait 3 years before I start really thinking about this due to technology or market trends, where everything's at?
Yeah. I mean, I have business ideas all the time. I think any entrepreneur is always thinking about new business ideas. I think that one specifically was purely just like a lack of knowledge. And I like to, I mean, it would be nice for me to sit here and posture and pretend that like, oh, I knew the perfect timing and I just waited and I was patient. If I had the resources and know-how to do it back, 6 years ago when I first had the idea, 7 years ago, I would have probably done it, and I probably would have failed. But Yeah, for listeners that don't have context, I did have another software company prior to Shopgenie,
Right.
which was also acquired, called MediaKits.com. And it's the only business I've ever started that actually wasn't automotive focused. And so it's a really interesting thing. I think I learned a ton of lessons building that business. It was a software company, so I took a ton of learning lessons from the successes and the failures of Media Kits and was able to apply them to Shopgenie. And I think that running Media Kits was actually one of the reasons that Shopgenie was so successful is because I was able to avoid a lot of the potholes and pitfalls that that we had with the previous business. And so I think that that's just kind of extrapolating that out to life more broadly is, learning from your mistakes. When you've done something once and you've failed and fallen on your face and encountered a ton of hardship and problems, it becomes a lot easier to avoid those things the second time around.
Totally. Business aside, what have you learned about yourself in these years of building companies, running them, but also just you as a person and how you work? And I mean, you're still early years right now, but I'm very curious, like what goes through your mind outside of business? Like what are you learning about yourself and how you think about things?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would say that comes to mind when you ask me that question is just like identity and purpose. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs wrap up their purpose and their identity into their businesses, which there's pros and cons to it. I think the pros are it helps you be more obsessed when you're running the business. The cons are one day when you're not running that business anymore, you kind of like lose yourself and you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what to do.
Who are you?
And so I experienced this after Media Kits. I experienced this a little bit after Shopgenie, and I'm still kind of working through some things on that topic. But ultimately, there's a great Matthew McConaughey quote where he talks about how back in the 90s and the early 2000s, he was the rom-com guy. Like all he did was rom-coms, right? And that was his thing. And it was, if you asked anybody in the early 2000s if they knew who Matthew McConaughey was, the response would probably be something along the lines of, oh yeah, the dude that did that rom-com that I really like, or that my wife likes, right?
Yeah.
And then he disappeared. He didn't do any movies for like 8 years.
Yeah.
And then he comes out 2012, Wolf of Wall Street, Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar, back to back to back. And all of a sudden he's not known as the rom-com guy anymore. And I think that when I heard him say that, it really resonated with me because I never wanted to be Kieran, the influencer marketing software guy, or Kieran, the auto repair software guy, or any of these labels that I've had throughout my career.
You don't want to be typecast.
The marketing guy, whatever it is, right? Like I've had all these labels, and some of them are self-induced. I identify as these things. But also people also label you externally when they're talking. Oh yeah, Kieran, the Shopgenie guy, he does the automotive stuff. I think the one thing I've learned about myself, to answer your question, is that I'm on a mission to kind of create my own identity that is not directly tied to whatever I happen to be building at that time or whatever my career happens to be in that season of my life. I want to build something that can outlast all of those things. And I want to be known for more than just what I've built. So that's something that I've learned about myself.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think it's a little bit of a play on that question. Do you still think you're finding your purpose even with all this success?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is the kind of the core fundamental, like, human journey is creating your identity and finding your purpose and reinventing yourself constantly. I think that's just life. That's how it goes. Whenever a chapter of life closes, I think you're constantly doing those things, but I think when a chapter closes, such as like selling a business or changing career paths or whatever, I think it's even more under the microscope in your own mind. So
for people in their 20s, we have even 20s, 30s, teens, whatever you want to call it. I think there's more opportunity than ever at this point, but it's almost a paralysis by analysis of like, where do you go? Where do you start? You mentioned earlier, YouTube U. I love to call it that too. Like You want to learn something, go to YouTube. I mean, you could go down a rabbit hole for a good 2 weeks and become a master, like not a master, but know a lot about that topic. For somebody that is struggling to kind of find that path or that why, have you even had any buddies around your age that have like struggled with this, that you've said like, hey, this is where you need to start. This is the foundation of what you need to go off of, and go from there, and you'll see results or a path for yourself.
For entrepreneurs that are listening, and then I'll get more broad. For entrepreneurs that are listening, building a business is personal development disguised as wealth building, right?
Well,
You think you are building a business to create wealth for yourself or to create financial freedom or independence. But ultimately what it actually is a personal development journey. And I think that's the biggest shift that people need to have is I think people are doing things for a lot of the wrong reasons, and they have the wrong incentive structures in place. And so I think my advice is, number one, focus. You can only do one thing really well at any given time, right? And especially when you're early on in your life and early on in your career, that thing that I was just talking about with purpose and identity, it's vitally important for you to feel like you're making progress towards those things.
Yeah.
And, it is a fine balance to make sure that you don't put your entire identity and all of your life's purpose into one business or one company or anything like that. But the reality is you're going to learn so many other skills and so many things about yourself on that journey, but you won't if you're not focused. And if you keep starting things and shutting them down and starting things and shutting them down.
Yeah.
I think focusing on one goal at a time and understanding that effort compounds over time and results compound over time. And, it's like that 10 feet from gold thing where you're digging. You don't find
one of my favorites. Yeah.
One day you hit it. I think that is one of the things that is extremely underrated, is just staying on the path, avoiding shiny object syndrome as much as you possibly can, and just keeping one North Star in mind the whole time.
Well, we called a meme, whatever. But yeah, he's digging. The one digger is right there.
Yeah.
And he's about to knock through, and he turns around and gives up, where the other guy is continuing to go. And you see the other side of the diamonds, everything there. And to your point of shiny object syndrome, it's almost that instant gratification that everybody chases. Instead of thinking in weeks, months, or even a year, start thinking in decades even of how can you expand that, of how much you can accomplish. And I have this talk with the SDRs, people that start, how much have you learned over the last month? How much have you learned over the last 6 months? How much you've learned over the last year? And they're like, oh my gosh, like my brain is three times the size of what it was before compared to what it is now. So it's definitely an approach for learning and growth that I think is important for anybody out there that's listening to this, for sure. Speaking of leadership, how has your leadership evolved over time?
Oh, I mean, that's been another journey that I've been on for sure. Is I never thought that I could lead people. I never really considered myself to be a leader. And I think, the concept of nature versus nurture with a lot of these things, whether it's leadership or confidence or sales skills or whatever it is, there's this concept of how much of it is nature, how much of it is naturally inside of you, and it just needs to be found, versus how much of it can actually be nurtured and taught. I do think leadership is nurturable. I think it's learnable if you commit to learning about it. And so I spent a ton of time in the early days of Shopgenie reading leadership books, and by no means am I an expert. I don't even consider myself to be like a great leader. I think I'm a good leader. But yeah, I think learning about leadership is one of the most important things you can do, regardless of what you do for a living. It carries over to all aspects of life. And, a few of the key concepts is lead by example. It's the big one, right? It's very simple. Just never ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself or that you don't do yourself.
Yeah.
And then another one is just listen more than you talk, right? If you're in a position of leadership, you want your people to march forward and do what they feel is right, because you need to trust them. You can't micromanage people. You literally, when your team gets to a certain size, you literally can't micromanage people. So you have to trust them. And so letting them talk and letting them come to you and sitting back and listening and practicing active listening, those are some of the things that I've found a lot of success with from a leadership standpoint.
We're looking at it right now. There's one of these, two of these for a reason.
Yeah.
Listen twice as much as you talk. What were the books that were pretty profound for you as you're on this leadership journey as far as just improving and looking to improve? Like, what books have really stood out to you and have been kind of paramount?
Yeah, I mean, Start With Why, Simon Sinek.
Great one.
Leaders Eat Last is another great one.
Yep.
And Good to Great is another, more company building, a little bit of leadership, but more company building. Those are all great books that I've really embraced in my life.
I want to shift back to technology real quick. AI, large language models, they are the hot topic right now and really just transforming industries overnight. It's like you blink and it's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Where do you really see AI playing a bigger role in the auto repair and customer experience journey as these years kind of play out? I'd say over these next, we're kind of in a revolution point right now where it's happening so fast that something could be outdated in 3 months from now to what it'll be in another 3 months or even a year. Where do you see AI, large language models, really playing a part in what we're doing or any industry for that factor? And I guess a second part to that is, what are you bullish on?
I'm really bullish on AI agents. So AI that can accomplish tasks within specific guardrails inside of a specific industry. AI agents are fascinating to me. I've been doing a ton of research on them. For our industry, for the auto repair industry, and this is kind of every vertical right now. I think the one thing across the board that AI is doing is leveling the playing field. It's like that saying, when the tide goes out, you'll see who's swimming naked. It's gonna force companies to take a harder look at their processes, their workforces. It's gonna make good, hardworking people even better, and it's gonna expose the lazy ones. I think that is the thing that I'm hoping it happens more, because there is just the barrier to entry to building software now, the barrier to entry to creating like really meaningful outcomes for small businesses with this technology it's just so easy now. Yeah. And so I think it's gonna take the companies that are already innovative and make them even more innovative. Right. It's going to take the companies that have lost their innovation, that are stagnant, that are complacent, and it's going to rip them down and make room for a lot of competition and make their lives a lot more difficult than they have been over the last few years. See that across all industries.
I'm always very curious on where is the saturation going to be? What is going to be completely ripped out? And like you said, it's going to expose the people that aren't working as hard, but the people that are working extremely hard, they're just going to kind of double down and see better results, I guess it would be the best way to put that. I'm also, is there fear mongering that's out there right now just around AI? And it's like, guys, this happened in 2000, this happened in, I'm trying to think of other bubbles. I just feel like there's so much fear mongering right now. And it's like, it kind of embrace it a little bit, and not everything is iRobot, so to speak, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, like any trend, right? There's always going to be a few winners and a lot of losers. Just like there was in the internet bubble in the early 2000s, and just like we've seen with cryptocurrency and everything else, there's always a couple winners and a lot of losers, right? It's like, in any industry, you've got your one very clear front runner. You've got maybe a couple people that are really trying to get to second place, and then you've got a bunch of nobodies beneath that. right?
Yeah.
You can extrapolate this out to this goes for sales teams. This goes for software companies. This goes for AI startups. Like you can extrapolate this out to anything in life, right? There's always going to be those clear winners. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of companies that go under, a lot of incumbents that get disrupted. But ultimately, what we're going to see is over the next few years, the market's going to level out. There's going to be a few clear winners. There's going to be a few clear large language model providers. There's going to be a few clear platforms that you're able to build a lot of this stuff on top of, agent platforms, et cetera. And yeah, it's all really exciting. I mean, I don't have any fear around it because I know that, just like every other trend, there's going to be a leveling that happens, and the market is going to correct itself, and it's going to expose who the winners are. So
totally. A little bit of a fun question real quick. I got to go back to you flipping shoes online. What have been some of your favorite shoes just through the past years that you've loved? I saw you rocking some nice kicks during the company kickoff. I didn't say anything to you, but I was like, all right, I mean, he's got some style in his feet. All right, I like it. But what have been some of your favorite kicks through the years?
You know what's funny? I was like super into sneakers in high school. And then like the last 6-7 years, I haven't really cared at all. I've only had a couple pairs of shoes.
I'm with you.
More recently, I'm back into it.
Coming back.
So it's funny. I don't know. I had like the bread Jordan 1s back in the day, like the OG Jordan 1s. I had the Jordan 11s, the black and white ones. Those are really cool. The South Beach Miami 9s.
Nice.
I love those ones. Those ones were like the pink and blue. I used to wear those to high school all the time.
So you're a Jordan dude.
Yeah, I like Jordans. I had some LeBrons, some KDs. I did the dunk thing for a while and the SB lows.
I was a Jordan guy myself, but to your point, like you go through this phase where you're like, oh, I want sneaks. And then years ago, I'm like, I sold all my Jordans. I used to have the 4s, the 13s, the 10s, the 11s that you were mentioning. I still have my 2s just because nobody bought them. They were just like a part of that. Remember the package deals that they used to do?
Of the Jordans.
My personal favorites were the 3s from a comfort level. My favorite ones were the He Got Game 13s, the ones that he wore in the movie He Got Game.
Those were like the colorful ones, right? Or am I thinking about it?
They were, I'll send you a picture of them after. They were white with like a red or a black silhouette around it and then a little bit of red. So it was like the Bulls colors. They released them. The first time anybody saw them was in the movie He Got Game when Denzel was wearing them. So they just went like hotcakes right when that movie came out. I think that was like 98. It was the last year around then. So last question before I let you go. This podcast is all about getting 1% better, improving your life, your business, your personal relationships, everything encompassed of just improving yourself. What does 1% better define to as you, or how do you think about that?
I think just having a growth mindset in general will help you become 1% better. Doing something new every day. So for me, I told myself that my theme for 2025 was I want to become competent at like a few key things that I have never historically been good at. And what I think people don't realize, keeping with the 1% theme, is it's really not hard to become better than 99% of humans at anything. Right? Because what it really to be in the top 1%, all you really have to do is be like baseline competent at it, right? To be better than 99% of golfers, for example, it's not that hard. You have to practice a little bit. You're never going to be a professional golfer, but you can get there. You can get to the top 1%. To be the top 1% of closers or AEs or SDRs, right? It's like it's not when you really break it down. It's not that hard. Now, top like 0.01% is really where the crazy stuff is. That's where you're talking like professional level. But to become better than 99% of people at pretty much anything just takes baseline competency. And so for me, that's something that I've focused on for this year, is just picking a few things that I want to get better at and just deciding that I'm going to be better than 99% of people at it. And I think that focus on that, focus on enhancing your skill sets and whatever you decide to do in life. That's how you get 1% better every day.
Love it, man. Thanks for coming on. Sincerely appreciate it. You are wise beyond your years. And it's been a treat to see your journey, learn about it. We'll definitely be following it as the years go by and seeing other projects that you embark on. But Kieran O'Brien, thank you for coming on the 1% Bttr Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.